Hello everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Under the Skin, a brand new mini-series on this channel. I'm your host Christopher, the video game historian, and on this series, I'm going to take a look at the meaning behind the names of the legendary skins and weapons in Battlefield 1. Similar to the Mondragoon skin name, the Dane for the Madsen machine gun simply refers to the 26,000 Danish soldiers who fought for the German army in the war. Prior to the outbreak of the war, the Schleswig-Holstein region of Denmark was annexed by Germany after the Second War of Schleswig in 1864, making these Danes German citizens. Between 1914 and 1918, 26,000 Danes will serve in the 84th Regiment, 86th Fusilier Regiment, and the 86th Reserve Regiment. Of that number, 4,000 will be killed and 6,000 will be wounded as they fought at Verdun, Cambrai, Arras, and the Somme. As far back as the beginning of the war, tensions between the Germans and Danes were high, with each side mistrusting of one another. It didn't help that after the mobilization of troops, the German Empire began arresting over 300 Danish people for being politically suspect, or mainly for fear that with their knowledge of the coastal waters, Danish fishermen and boat captains would reach out and help the British against the Germans. Still, a strong national identity for the Danes came about during this war as they carried their flags in their pockets and wrote letters back home in Danish. There really isn't much to say about the name of the skin for the Model 10A shotgun, as the name of the skin, the Riot, actually refers to the type of shotgun the Model 10A was designed as, a Riot shotgun. Remington produced these weapons between 1908 and 1929, and between 3,500 and 5,000 were produced for the war. The US Army used a variety of barrel lengths for the Model 10A, from the standard being 23 inches, which was shortened from the sport version, to a 20-inch barrel known as the Riot gun for guard duty, and even 26 to 30-inch barrels for the training of aerial gunners. During the Philippine insurrection of 1899 to 1902, General Pershing saw the effect that the M1916 shotgun had and backed the concept and development of a combat shotgun based off the M97. Eventually, the Model 10As were shipped over to Europe as demand for shotguns increased due to the effectiveness of that very same M97. While the name of the skin is in reference to the Model 10A being a Riot shotgun, there were also many riots taking place during and after the war. The most notable ones probably being the Chemin des Dames riot of the French army and the infamous race riots in America after the war. For the Selbstlader M1916, the legendary skin, the Chancellor, is in reference to none other than the Chancellor of Germany, Theobald von Bethmann-Hollweg. Born in 1856, Bethmann-Hollweg served as the German Chancellor from 1909 to 1917. Prior to that, he was the Prussian Minister of the Interior and then State Secretary in the Imperial Office of the Interior. During the Balkan Wars, he liaised with the British Foreign Secretary to prevent its expansion into a border conflict. This is often seen as his greatest foreign affairs success. As Chancellor, however, he tried to govern on a compromise between the left and right in Germany, but this only made both sides dislike him more. The conservative military command barely listened to him and eventually created the Third Supreme Command, which essentially was a military dictatorship in Germany. He lobbied against the use of unrestricted submarine warfare, knowing that would not only bring the US into the war, but it would be an ensured Allied victory if they were. However, the Kaiser sided with the German High Command for its use, and eventually his influence declined, especially during the civil unrest in Germany. He will be later forced to resign in 1917 after conservatives and socialists conspired against him during peace resolutions. Finally, ending with the Scout class again is the Madsen skin for the Russian 1895. Now the Russian 1895 isn't actually a Russian rifle, as it was designed by John Browning and manufactured for Russia by Winchester due to their shortages of Mosin-Nagant rifles. Now medicine in World War I was just beginning to change after being stagnant for 50 years since the American Civil War, at least in America. Doctors were slow to understand the link between exposure and infection, and once they did, soldiers had to be brought to the operating rooms within 12 hours, Otherwise, no medicine will be able to stop the infections. The injured will be taken from the front lines by stretcher bearers, brought to field hospitals by ambulances, then, if necessary, were taken to base hospitals. Typically, soldiers were exposed to 4 types of injuries: gas, shell shock, disease, and wounds. For many, soldiers dealt with lice, shell shock, trench foot, and influenza, and disease itself was just as big of a killer as bullets and shells were. That's all for this week's episode. Hopefully you all enjoyed this new endeavor, and if you had, please like, subscribe, share, and leave your comments down below. Until next time, see you on the battlefield.